Mr. Bradshaw, why should farmers be an exception? Others have to pay inheritance tax, why shouldn't you?
Unfortunately, the margins we're making from food production are just so low. On average, it's about a 0.5% return on capital. I really hope not. We don't want we don't want our consumers to bear the brunt of this. This is an issue with an ill thought through government policy.
This policy is cruel, it is unfair, and it is going to destroy farming as we know it.
You are feeding our families and you're struggling to feed your own. That is just so wrong.
Picture this, Keir Starmer standing triumphant in July, believing he'd led Labour to a new era. Fast forward a few months and he's facing a voter rebellion that could cost his party hundreds of seats. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What went wrong? From the tractor tax fiasco to pension controversies, we'll take you through Labour's fall from grace. It's a cautionary tale of how quickly political tides can turn and why no party should take voters for granted. Remember Keir Starmer's confident speech at the National Farmers Union conference? It now rings hollow as Labour's rural disconnect becomes glaringly apparent. The party's proposed changes to inheritance tax for agricultural property have ignited a firestorm of controversy in farming communities across the UK. Labour's new policy aims to reduce the inheritance tax allowance for farms, a move they claim will only affect a small minority. But the reality on the ground paints a starkly different picture. Family farms, often asset-rich but cash-poor, are finding themselves caught in the crosshairs of this ill-conceived policy. These are not wealthy investors exploiting tax loopholes, but hard-working families struggling to keep their generations-old businesses afloat. The disconnect between urban policymakers and rural communities couldn't be more evident. While Labour leadership insists the changes will have limited impact, farmers are organising protests and voicing their concerns. They feel unheard and misunderstood by a government that seems out of touch with the realities of rural life. Expert analysis reveals the potential devastating impact on rural economies. Family farms, already operating on razor-thin margins, may be forced to sell off land or equipment just to cover the new tax liabilities. This could lead to a ripple effect, causing job losses and economic instability in areas already struggling with limited opportunities. How will this policy affect Labour's support in key rural constituencies? The answer is becoming increasingly clear. Polling data shows a significant decline in Labour's rural support. These areas, once considered Labour strongholds, are now slipping away as voters perceive the party's policies as a direct threat to their livelihoods and communities. The tractor tax fiasco exposes a fundamental weakness in Labour's approach to governance. By failing to engage meaningfully with farmers and truly understand the implications of their policies, they've alienated a crucial voter base. It's a stark reminder that political decisions made in Westminster can have far-reaching and often unintended consequences for those living and working in the countryside. But as damaging as this rural backlash is for Labour, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The party's troubles are about to deepen as another group of voters feels betrayed by broken promises and policy U-turns. The rural backlash was just the beginning. Now a group of women born in the 1950s are holding Labour to account over a $58 billion promise. The WASPy women, as they're known, are at the centre of a controversy that could shatter Labour's credibility and reshape British politics. These women, born between 1950 and 1960, found themselves caught in a pension trap. Changes to the state pension age left them with up to 6 years less in retirement benefits than they had planned for. It's not just about money, it's about broken trust and shattered dreams. Labour's pre-election stance on this issue was clear and promising. They pledged to address the WASPy women's grievances, even hinting at substantial compensation. But now, with the reins of power in their hands, Labour's tune has changed dramatically. The promised support has evaporated, leaving millions of women feeling betrayed and abandoned. The emotional toll on these women and their families is staggering. Many had carefully planned their retirements, only to find themselves forced to work years longer or face financial hardship. One WASPy woman shared, "I feel like the government has stolen my future. I've worked hard all my life, and now I'm struggling to make ends meet." Experts are divided on the feasibility of compensation. Some argue that the $58 billion price tag is simply too high for a country still recovering from economic shocks. Others point out that similar pension age changes in other countries have been met with compensation packages, raising questions about the UK government's commitment to social justice. The discontent over this issue is spreading like wildfire. It's not just the WASPy women themselves, it's their families, friends, and communities who are watching this unfold with growing anger. The question on everyone's lips is, if Labour can so easily break this promise, what other commitments might they discard? Polling data paints a grim picture for Labour. Trust among older voters is eroding rapidly, with many expressing deep disappointment over the party's handling of the WASPy issue. This demographic, once a reliable base for Labour, is now slipping away. The implications for future elections could be seismic. As trust in Labour wanes, an unexpected political force is gaining ground. Voters are looking for alternatives, and they're finding them in surprising places. The political landscape is shifting, and the WASPy women controversy might just be the catalyst for a major realignment in British politics. Labour's recent stumbles have exposed the fragility of political mandates in today's volatile climate. The party's rapid fall from grace serves as a stark reminder that voter loyalty can't be taken for granted. As Labour grapples with the fallout from broken promises and policy missteps, a new force is rising to challenge the status quo. Reform UK's projected gain of 72 seats signals a seismic shift in British politics. This surge isn't just about one party's success, it's a clear indication of deep-seated dissatisfaction with traditional party politics. Voters, particularly in former Labour strongholds, are expressing their frustration with unfulfilled promises and perceived indifference from established parties. The message from the electorate is crystal clear. Promises matter, and they're watching closely. The days of voters blindly following party lines are over. This new political landscape, where over 40% of seats could be won with less than a third of the vote, poses serious questions about the future of the UK's two-party system. As the electorate fragments, the path to a stable majority government becomes increasingly complex, potentially ushering in an era of coalition politics that Britain hasn't seen in generations.